There's no dispute, I think, that Rachel Reeves hasn't done great things for this economy, and some people say she's destroyed the UK economy. With all the decisions that she's made and the increase in costs and loss of certain jobs, inflation, you name it, lots of things have gone wrong here. And yet she seems to be playing the blame game every 5 minutes and giving us a game to play as to who she's going to blame next. So there is a link to personal finance here. So I want you to stick around because this is a very important lesson I think we can all learn, and we can all learn from each other's mistakes, even if they don't own them and even if they blame somebody else for them. But the inflation rates have remained high in the UK. In May, it remained very high at 3.4%, barely dropping from April's at 3.5%. And as a double whammy to inflation, we have slashed rates of growth as well. The Confederation of Business Industry, the CBI, has slashed its growth forecast and expects the UK economy to grow by a measly 1.2% in 2025 and even worse in 2026 at 1%, down from previous predictions of 1.6 and 1.5. And if you hadn't noticed, we are here on my Money channel, so please do subscribe here for general tips and tricks on personal finance, business, finance, and wealth creation. So worse still, unemployment is still on the up. The CBI expects it to hit 4.8% next year, which is up from 4.6% as of today. That means more people out of a job, because you'll remember my previous video where I talked about the increase in costs in employer national insurance. Obviously, making it more expensive for companies to hire people, they're going to hire fewer people, or they're going to not do wage increases, or if they do them, there'll be a lower rate of increase. But more often, they are just not going to employ extra staff, particularly graduate jobs that are more expensive. The more expensive the staff, the higher the costs to the employer with the employer rates of national insurance. And so with inflation, the slashes to growth predictions and unemployment, whilst the Bank of England is expected to keep its base rates at 4.25, instead of cutting mortgage rates, some are actually going to increase them or already increasing them. And so despite all the talk of reducing mortgage rates and so on, this could spell a serious problem. So on the one hand, whilst Rachel Reeves is making these decisions ostensibly to increase income and funding for the government, it is at the cost of lots of other things, for example, jobs and increasing prices. Because if companies and employers are not going to meet these costs by having fewer employees or lowering the increase in salaries, they might be doing so by increasing their prices in general, which of course is reflected in inflation and the prices that you pay at the end of the day. And it's not just the CBI that has slashed its growth forecasts either. The Bank of England, the OBR, the IMF have all slashed and pretty much halved their rates of growth as well. Without growth, there's no additional way of that income for spending, which is obviously going to result in higher taxes in the next budget. And all of these things we can look forward to and plan ahead because we can see them coming. At least if you see what's happening now, you should be able to plan what's going forward. But all the while, she's obviously blaming somebody else. Now, it's no secret that they repeatedly blame the previous government, which to a degree could be true, but also looking for other people to blame now. Now, back to January, blaming global instability, but of course, if anything goes well, it's all because of her policies. But she's even blaming Donald Trump, which in part his threats of tariffs are somewhat real. They don't paint the full picture. And so whilst the increasing borrowing costs has been blamed on economic volatility via the Donald Trump rates and everything else, when the Bank of England does cut rates, of course, she puts that all down to her policies. And so this is where I really say that we need to draw a lesson from this, because you can do one of two things. You can learn from other people's mistakes, or you can repeat them. And you can learn from your own mistakes, or you can repeat them. But what we can ideally do is take stock of what the situation is right now, make some predictions going forward, and better adjust ourselves so that we can deal with what meets us ahead. For example, there will be absolutely no surprise if there are further tax increases down the line or slashing of other services down the line, because they can't meet all of these costs when growth is shrinking, inflation is on the up, jobs are being cut, and ultimately that is a vicious circle. If income is being dented and inflation is on the up, how on earth are they going to pay for those things? So we can look forward and paint that picture and adjust accordingly. And this is where we can draw our own lessons personally for your own personal finance. And so ultimately, the very first thing we need to do is not blaming somebody else for what's going on. We need to turn that around and look at ourselves. What is our current position? How did we get here? But more importantly, what can we do moving forward? If I were in, or any legal conference that I'm in, I start out with a question of what is it you want to achieve? Because only by figuring out what it is you want to achieve, you can figure out whether it's realistic and whether you can stick to a plan that will help you get there. Because you can't create a plan that will help you get there unless you know what that objective is. So I set out, what is your objective? Is it realistic? Is it achievable? And in a legal context, is it legal? Is it something that you can realistically do? And so with regard to personal finance, ideally you want to get out of debt first, because the best way of creating wealth is when you're in a position of not having debt, with the one exception of perhaps your mortgage, but ideally you can eventually pay that off as well. Don't listen to the so-called gurus that say you don't need to pay off your mortgage, and even some of them, they really irritate me. They shout at the screen, stop paying on your mortgage, etc. They really irritate me. The best place to create wealth is from a debt-free position. Now, some people will then say, but look at the billionaires and the billion and the trillion dollar companies and such. But you are not them, and for a long time you're not going to be them, because at the moment there's a big gap between you and billionaires. And so from their position, yes, they might be able to structure something where they leverage debt in order to increase wealth, but that is not for everybody, and certainly not for the beginning. At the beginning, ideally your personal wealth, the best objective is getting rid of your debt. But we need to take assessment of where we are right now. And instead of blaming someone else for how we got here, we need to look at where we are right now and what we can do about it. One of the best ways of doing that is with a spreadsheet, it'll be available on blackbeltbarrister.com. I'm not sure where it is. I'll link it below when I find it, but it's completely free. You do sign up into my website with your email address and so on, but it's free. There is paid content on there, but the spreadsheet will be free. You can put into that spreadsheet everything about your income and everything about your outgoings. You have to be absolutely brutally honest with that spreadsheet, and therefore with yourself and with your goals as to what you want to achieve. If it's just to pay off one credit card, fine. Put all the details in, then you'll be able to take stock of exactly where you are, and then you'll be able to make a plan to pay that off. And if you've got multiple cards or multiple loans or multiple whatever, then you can make the plan to get rid of those. But you need to start by being brutally honest with yourself in this spreadsheet, which will tell you what you have left at the end. And if it's minus, then things are getting worse. If it's a little bit positive, but you've got a lot of, say, holidays and spending and subscriptions like Netflix, or all sorts of restaurant bills, or all sorts of things that you've got in there that you could take out, you have to be brutally honest and brutal in your plan to be able to pay those things down and have that surplus at the end of it. But instead of blaming somebody else and looking for reasons why you can't do that, this is where you start. You start with a spreadsheet, put everything in, absolutely brutally honest, which has sort of become my catchphrase for my commentary on my other channels. But be brutally honest with yourself, put everything into the spreadsheet, and at the end, you will know which of those that you can tackle first. I've got a whole video on that spreadsheet itself. I will link that below. Jump over there, have a look at how you put things in, and there's a couple of different ways of approaching debt elimination. You can pick one that might work better for you, depending on your own personal profile, and again, be brutally honest with yourself as to which one you think you will realistically stick with. But I hope that's a bit of a lesson, because at the moment we get lots of excuses from our Chancellor, and I don't think it's any secret that a lot of people criticize what she's doing right now. But instead of blaming somebody else, which is the big lesson to take away from this, please do avail yourself of that spreadsheet. It will be free. I'll link it below when I've found where it is on my website. And let me know how you get on. If you're on this journey, if you're starting on this journey, or this is the first time you've ever seen me, well, hello, welcome. I've got a number of channels here. My main one is Black Belt Barrister. Then I've got Black Belt Barrister Off the Record, Black Belt Secrets, which is all sorts of other stuff. And of course, here, my money and wealth creation channel. So let me know where you are. Let me know what your plans are. Let me know how you get on with the spreadsheet. Leave your comments below. Please do remember to subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.